I still remember that night like it was burned into my memory. I pulled into my own driveway after a long day, hungry, tired, just wanting some peace, and froze. My gate, the one I paid for, the one that leads straight to my property, was locked. Not just closed, padlocked shut with a heavy silver lock that definitely wasn't mine. For a second I thought maybe I was in the wrong house or maybe someone was filming a prank show. But no, this wasn't a joke. It was Karen. Karen Whitmore. My self-appointed neighborhood warden had officially lost her mind. She wasn't on the HOA board because there wasn't one. She wasn't part of the city. She was just Karen, the kind of woman who treated a quiet suburban cul-de-sac like her personal kingdom, and apparently she'd decided I was her latest project. I got out of the truck staring at that lock like it was a bad dream. And then, as if on cue, she emerged from behind her bushes, arms crossed, smug little smile that I run this place looked plastered on her face. "Oh," she said sweetly, "I went ahead and locked it for you. Your truck's been an eyesore for weeks. Maybe this will teach you to park like a civilized person." For a moment I thought she was kidding, but then she stood there chin up, daring me to argue. "Karen," I said slowly, trying to keep calm, "that's my gate. My property. You can't just lock me out." And she actually laughed. Well, I just did. My blood pressure skyrocketed. I wanted to yell, but there was something almost unbelievable about the whole thing. Like what kind of person wakes up one morning and decides they're going to physically lock their neighbor's gate because they don't like a truck? Still, I tried. "Reason, you need to remove that lock right now. You're trespassing." She waved her phone at me like a badge. "Go ahead, call whoever you want." The association already agreed with me. That line nearly made me burst out laughing, because, and here's the kicker, we didn't even have an HOA. Karen had literally invented one in her mind. At that point I realized reasoning wasn't going to work. I had two options: argue until she screamed loud enough for the neighborhood to come watch, or call the people who actually had authority. I chose option 2. When I dialed the police, her smug face went pale. "You can't do that," she barked. "Oh, I can," I said, and I just did. By the time the officers arrived, half the street was peeking out their windows. Karen straightened up like she'd been waiting for a medal. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she started. "I was just protecting the community from—" She pointed at me, him. One officer walked over, studied the padlock, then turned to her. "Ma'am, did you put this here?" She nodded proudly. "Yes, but it was necessary. He's violating community rules." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Community rules, ma'am. This neighborhood doesn't have an HOA." Her smile faltered. "Well, it should." The second officer actually snorted. "That's not how this works." And then came the most satisfying sound I've heard all year. Clink. The officer snipped the lock right off my gate. Karen gasped like he'd just shot her dog. "You can't do that," she shrieked. "Ma'am, the officer said it's not your property. You have no authority here." The neighbors started whispering. One guy pulled out a lawn chair. Someone else had their phone up recording. Karen was turning red, sputtering about community standards and property values. The officer stayed calm. "Property values don't give you the right to trespass, ma'am." That was it. Karen's kingdom crumbled right there on my driveway. She spun on her heels, stomping back toward her house. "This isn't over," she yelled. "You'll regret this." I just stood there holding that broken lock in my hand. The officer grinned. "Souvenir." "Oh, I'm keeping it," I said, right next to my sanity, which she almost stole. For one night it was quiet again. But peace doesn't last long when you live next to someone like Karen. The next morning there was a note taped to my door in all caps. "You may have tricked the police, but I will be watching. Expect consequences." I laughed at first, but as the days passed, that laughter faded. Every time I stepped outside, I felt her eyes on me, the blinds shifting, the sound of her phone camera clicking. I started wondering if I was the problem. Maybe I had parked too close to the curb. Maybe I was being difficult. One night I caught myself standing by the gate holding that old lock, and I actually thought about apologizing to her just to make it stop. That's when I realized I was starting to let her win. And that more than anything pissed me off. The very next morning I grabbed my coffee, stepped outside, and froze. My driveway was blocked again. This time not by a lock, but by 4 bright orange traffic cones lined up like she'd rented out the place for a construction project. And there she was, Karen. Sunglasses on, arms folded, standing proud like a traffic cop who'd just been promoted to Empress of Asphalt. "What are you doing?" I asked, still half asleep. She gestured at the cones. "You don't have clearance to park here anymore." "Clearance?" "Karen, this is my driveway." "Not anymore. You're lowering the neighborhood standards." I almost spilled my coffee laughing. "Karen, you can't just put cones on private property." She smirked. "Well, I did. And if you move them, I'll call the police." The irony was almost too good. "Perfect," I said. "Let's call them together." 5 minutes later, the same squad car rolled up. The same 2 officers stepped out, and when they saw the cones, one of them literally face-palmed. "Ma'am, are those traffic cones?" "Yes," she said proudly. "He's not authorized to park in his driveway." The officer took a deep breath. "Ma'am, we told you yesterday. This is his property. You can't block it." "Then arrest me," she snapped. "I'm not moving them." And then, no exaggeration, she sat down. Right there in the middle of my driveway, legs crossed like she was staging a protest. The neighbors started filming again. One guy yelled, "This is better than Netflix." The officer looked at me, then back at her, clearly wondering if this was real life. "Ma'am," he said finally, "if you don't move, we'll have to charge you with obstruction." She glared up, muttered something about fascism, and then, with the grace of a toddler denied a toy, she stood up, kicked the cones aside, and stomped off. The moment she disappeared, the crowd erupted in applause. Actual applause. Someone even shouted "Freedom!" I just stood there, shaking my head, sipping my coffee like it was the best show I'd ever seen. As the officers got back in their car, one rolled down his window. "Call us if she tries to build a fence next." I laughed. Oh, don't tempt her. But deep down I knew it wasn't over. Not with someone like Karen. People like her don't stop, they escalate. And I was right. Over the next week, she started sending mass emails to the neighborhood claiming I was harassing her, damaging community aesthetics, and posing a threat to safety. None of it was true. But the crazy part, she actually signed every message with HOA President Willow Glen Estates. Remember, this was a non-HOA neighborhood. She'd literally crowned herself president of something that didn't exist. But karma has a funny sense of timing, because all those videos the neighbors took, the padlock, the cones her driveway sit in, they went viral. Some local Facebook page picked it up, and within days Karen became internet famous. Thousands of people commenting, laughing, calling her driveway dictator and cone queen. And she hated it. You could see it on her face every time she stepped outside, head down, sunglasses on, pretending not to hear the whispers. A week later, the police came back again. Only this time I hadn't called. Turns out another neighbor had caught her trespassing into their yard to check on their fence height. When confronted, she said she was enforcing community standards. The officers were done being polite. "Ma'am," one said, "you're not part of any association. You have no authority to enter anyone's property. This is harassment." They handed her a written warning. I heard her voice crack as she tried to argue. "But I was just trying to help." That was the last time anyone saw her outside for a while. The next morning her blinds were shut. The street was quiet. And for the first time in weeks I could walk out to my driveway without feeling watched. That night I placed the old silver padlock on my kitchen counter. I don't know why, I guess as a reminder, not just of Karen's craziness, but of the moment I almost gave in, of how easy it is to doubt yourself when someone loud and relentless keeps pushing. Because that's what people like her do. They bully, they intimidate, they invent authority to make others small. And if you're not careful, you start believing maybe they're right. But standing there holding that lock, I realized something: Karen didn't win because she had power. She only won when people let her think she did. So yeah, my gate is open again. My driveway's clear. And the next time someone tries to lock me out of what's mine, I won't hesitate to fight back. Because sometimes justice isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just the sound of a padlock hitting the ground. Lesson learned. No self-appointed Karen gets to rule your life, especially when the law's on your side.